the silence that speaks, the return to the village. Kaito returned to his village with the shamisen in his hands and silence in his heart. The people welcomed him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. How could a deaf musician play again? What kind of magic or madness had possessed him during his absence? But when Kaito began to play in the village square, all doubts vanished. His music was not just sound. It was an experience that transcended hearing. The melodies flowing from his shamisen resonated in the air, but also in the hearts of those who listened. It was as if each note carried a story, an emotion, a fragment of the universe. The children approached first, drawn by curiosity. Then, the adults captivated by the depth of his music. Kaito did not speak much, but his presence was enough. Over time, he began to teach others not just how to play the shamisen, but how to listen in a different way. He taught them to feel music in their bones, to perceive life in the vibrations of the world. His students, initially confused, began to understand that music was not just an auditory art, but a complete sensory experience. The young musician. One day, a young man arrived in the village looking for Kaito. His name was Run, a talented musician who had lost his passion for his art. He had heard stories about the deaf prodigy who played the shamisen as if the universe itself were in its strings. Ren was desperate to find something that could pull him out of his apathy. Kaito received him calmly and offered him a seat in his humble home. "What are you looking for?" Kaito asked, gazing at the young man with serene eyes. "I have lost my love for music," Ren replied. "I heard that you have found something beyond sound. Can you teach me?" Kaito smiled faintly and handed him the shamisen. "Play," he said simply. Ren hesitated but took the instrument and began to play. The notes flowed, but they lacked soul. Kaito observed in silence, and when Ren finished, he asked him a question. "What did you feel?" Ren frowned. "Nothing," he admitted. Kaito nodded. "Then you weren't listening." Ren looked at him, confused. "How can I listen if there is no sound?" Kaito leaned forward. "Sound is not just what you hear with your ears. It is what you feel with your heart. Close your eyes and play again. This time, don't search for the notes. Search for what lies behind them." Ren obeyed. This time, his fingers moved more slowly, more carefully. At first, he noticed no difference, but then, something changed. He began to feel the vibrations of the shamisen in his hands, in his chest. The notes were no longer just sounds but sensations. When he finished, he opened his eyes and saw Kaito smiling. "Now you understand," Kaito said. Ren nodded, tears in his eyes. "Thank you." Kaito did not reply. He knew words were unnecessary. Ren had found his own path, and that was enough. The Moon Festival. The village decided to organize a festival in honor of Kaito and his music. They called it the Moon Festival, as the full moon would illuminate the night of the event. Kaito agreed to participate, but with one condition. He wanted all the village musicians to play together, not as individuals, but as one voice. On the day of the festival, the square was filled with people. The musicians gathered on stage, each with their instrument. Kaito stood in the center, shamisen in hand. When they began to play, something magical happened. The melodies intertwined, creating a symphony that seemed to come from another world. The people did not just hear the music, they felt it. It was as if the universe itself was singing through them. At the end of the performance, there was a deep silence. No one wanted to break the spell. Kaito looked at the crowd and smiled. He did not need words to express what he felt. His music had spoken for him. Ren's journey. Inspired by Kaito, Ren decided to embark on his own journey. He wanted to explore the world and share what he had learned. Kaito gave him his blessing and a shamisen as a farewell gift. "Remember," Kaito told him, Music is not in the notes, but in the silence that connects them. Ren nodded and departed, carrying Kaito's teachings and the promise to return someday. The encounter with nature. Kaito began spending more time in nature. He discovered that the forests, rivers, and mountains had their own music, one that did not need to be heard to be felt. He often sat beneath an old tree and let his fingers dance over the strings of the shamisen, creating melodies that seemed to emerge from the earth itself. One day, while walking through the forest, he found an injured wolf. The animal looked at him with wary eyes, but Kaito approached calmly. He took some water from his flask and offered it to the wolf. Then he began to play a soft, soothing melody. The wolf closed its eyes and relaxed, as if the music was healing it. From that day on, the wolf became his companion. It followed him everywhere, like a silent guardian. Kaito named it Yoru, which means night in Japanese. The samurai's challenge. A wandering samurai arrived in the village, challenging Kaito to a musical duel. The samurai, named Takashi, was known for his mastery of the koto, a traditional stringed instrument. He wanted to prove that Kaito's music was nothing more than a trick. Kaito accepted the challenge, but with one condition. The duel would not be to determine who was better, but to explore together the true meaning of music. On the day of the duel, the square was filled with people. Takashi played first with impeccable technique and burning passion. His music was powerful, but it lacked the depth that characterized Kaito's. When it was Kaito's turn, he closed his eyes and began to play. His music was soft at first, but soon it transformed into something greater, deeper. It was as if the universe itself was speaking through him. Takashi watched in awe, and when Kaito finished, he bowed in respect. "You have won," Takashi said. Kaito shook his head. "It is not about winning or losing. It is about finding truth in music." Takashi nodded, understanding for the first time that music was not a competition but a journey. Ren's return. Years later, Ren returned to the village. He had traveled across the country, sharing Kaito's teachings and learning from other musicians. He brought stories and songs from distant places, but also a deep gratitude toward his master. Kaito welcomed him with a smile. "You have grown," he said. Ren nodded. "Thanks to you." Together, they organized a new festival, this time with musicians from all over the country. It was a celebration of music, silence, and human connection. Kaito played one last time, and his music resonated in the hearts of all present. Kaito's legacy. Kaito spent the rest of his days in peace, teaching and sharing his wisdom. When he finally departed from this world, his music remained as an eternal legacy. The village erected a statue in his honor, not to remember him as a musician, but as a teacher who had taught everyone to listen with their hearts. And on nights of the full moon, when the wind blew through the trees, people said they could hear Kaito's shamisen, playing a melody that united the sky and the earth, sound and silence. Oh,